Hello, my name is Anthony Keller, and I'm that Deacon on YouTube, speaking to you this March 2018. As I'm sure you're aware, students from all across the country have walked out of their classrooms this past Wednesday to make sure the public is aware of a great disaster taking place across this nation with regard to gun violence in our schools. Prior to shooting this video, I did a check, and since the month of January, there have been 17 shootings at schools in these United States. After the Parkland massacre, I kept trying to figure out why these United States cannot have an open, honest, and productive discussion about ways to prevent these senseless tragedies. And for my mind, it's very simple. You just don't allow assault weapons to be sold. It's as simple as that. Yet others seem to feel as though if these rifles aren't available, the entire fabric of their well-being and their self-esteem would somehow be erased, and that the whole framework of society would crumble before our eyes. And of course, in my mind, I was thinking, let's say you're a parent, and little Jimmy or Susie tends to set fires with matches. What would you do? You would take the matches and hide them or not have them in your home. Hopefully, you would take little Jimmy or Susie to a mental health professional to find out why they like to start fires. But on the basic level, you would just remove matches or anything that might help them set a fire, and you would remove that from your space. So why is it we cannot come to a discussion about removing assault weapons? To me, this is, I feel like lost in space with the robot that says, does not compute, does not compute.
Does not compute, does not compute, does not compute.
As we refuse to have this discussion, I started to think, especially myself as a recovering alcoholic, I was thinking, well, does this mean that the United States is addicted to firearms? Well, a little research later, I found out that about 33% of the population in the United States owns guns. To me, that seems a bit high, but it doesn't denote an addiction. But then, addiction is still there, because I sense that we're seeing a whole range of denial over this subject. And when you look at addiction, denial feeds whatever the addiction is. Here are different categories of denial. Type A denial. When a person sees, understands, and knows that they have a definite problem. When confronted about the problem, they flat out deny it, knowing that it's true. Type B denial. When a person is either partially or totally blind to a problem that they have. Through 100 forms of self-deception, rationalization, justification, and excuse-making, a person can actually believe that they do not have a problem when everyone around them sees that it's obvious. Intellectual denial. Usually based on a lack of understanding, differences in semantics or definition. A good example is the person who thinks an alcoholic is a degenerate who lives on Skid Row. Anyone who still works and supports a family, pays the bills, and lives in a nice house couldn't possibly be an alcoholic. Spiritual denial. is even more difficult to deal with because it's so hard to see. This level of denial will lock a person into compliance, blocking any possibility for ongoing sobriety. We are living out the famed aphorism, doing the same thing over and over again, and expecting a different result. The addiction that is gripping our country goes back to tribalism. In fact, it is a complex form of tribalism. Tribal consumerism. Now, I don't mean consumerism in the sense of buying things, but consumerism in what we believe. This country is gripped with a whole group of people that feel that they must belong, and they must belong to their tribe. And if their tribe is not fed and not supported, they feel that the rest of the world is their enemy. That's probably why we see a call for a number of boycotts recently. This has grown in a much wider extent than I have seen in past times. Boycotts have been a form of protest, but we're hearing it more and more and more these days. That one tribe calls to boycott the other tribe. If one of the other tribe, like a company, supports a particular viewpoint and another tribe does not agree with it, then they call for a boycott to take down the tribe that has the opposing view. And this sets up the whole nature of our current form of thinking in society. In order to belong to the tribe, we share the same beliefs. In order to belong to the tribe, you have to feel this sense of belonging. And if you belong to a certain tribe, they expect a certain behavior. And this behavior has nothing to do with logic. And I think that's why people aren't able to communicate, because tribal thinking is emotional thinking. It has nothing to do with logic or reason. That's the way I believe, and that's the way it is. It's very dualistic. And dualism, as you know, has been a part of society for a long time, going way back even to the 1st century and before. We see this in the Bible all the time. Good versus evil, light versus dark. We see this dualism at play, and it's been drummed into our heads. It's been drummed into our heads at school. Good, bad, success, failure. These students are asking us to step out of that dualism and to actually listen for a change. Let me share this wonderful segment from a speech given by Matt Post, a 12th grader who spoke on the steps of our Capitol.
To start, we will not sit in classrooms with armed teachers. We refuse to learn in fear. We reject turning our schools into prisons. We will accept nothing less than comprehensive gun control. And if it's what it takes, we will shame our national policymakers into protecting us. Not just in schools, but in churches, movie theaters, on the streets, and in the communities of color, which are disproportionately devastated by the sickness of gun violence. And so this is not a partisan issue for us. There's nothing cosmetic about life or death. This is about guns. and it's about our morality as a country. When the Commander-in-Chief's solution to this country's gun problem is more guns, you know we have a moral problem in this White House. When national policymakers value the blood money of the NRA over the lives of children, you know we have a moral problem in the halls of Congress. And when this is doomed to happen again, when in the coming weeks and months, more of my peers will be slaughtered in their own classrooms, when their deaths will be dismissed as collateral, you know we have a moral problem in this country.
I hope you were able to listen to what he said. I hope you were able to step out of any form of tribalism, to listen with an open mind to what this young person said, because he's speaking truth. The problem with tribalism is that if it isn't the consumer message that you want to hear, it is automatically discounted. And probably the people that need to hear what this young man said had ears, but they did not listen. They have eyes, but they did not see. Many times clergy people are told after a massacre like Parkland, where is God when all this was taking place? Where was God in all this? Why didn't God stop it? It's something we hear all the time. And I want to say, people, God is in the faces of those students asking us to stop arguing and start acting. God is in the faces of all the students across this nation who put up signs of protest to say that their lives are in danger because we refuse to act. God is in the faces of all those students who walked out of the classroom holding signs, asking us as people to stop arguing and to start acting on their behalf. God is in the faces of all those who are afraid to go to school for fear of being shot and killed. God is in the mouths of these young people who spoke true words of wisdom, asking us to listen, but more importantly, asking us to act. And not only people who are in power, but everyone who values human life.